Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon and watched the stars pass by through the main window. His ship was 3 months into the longest journey humans had ever made. The crew of 45 people were all excited but nervous about what they might find in the Kepler 442 system. Earth had sent them to look for new planets that humans could live on someday. Lisa Parker came up to him with a tablet in her hands. She was the chief engineer and had been working on the ship's systems all morning. Her face looked worried but also excited. She showed him the readings on her screen and pointed to some strange numbers. "Captain, we are getting some weird signals. From the fourth planet," she said. "They don't look natural. Something made them." Jake looked at the data and felt his heart beat faster. The signals were too regular and too complex to be from rocks or weather. They looked like the kind of signals that machines would make. He called the rest of his senior crew to the bridge. Tony Rodriguez was the first to arrive. He ran the communications system and had been listening to space for any signs of other life. His equipment was the best Earth had ever built. Dr. Amanda Wells came next. She studied alien life and had dreamed of this moment her whole life. "Tony, can you tell us more about these signals?" Jake asked. Tony sat down at his station and started working with his computers. His fingers moved fast across the controls as he tried to understand what they were hearing. After 10 minutes, he looked up with wide eyes. "Captain, these signals are definitely artificial. They are coming from structures on the planet's surface. Big structures, much bigger than anything we have ever built." Dr. Wells moved to her own station and started scanning the planet with the ship's sensors. What she found made everyone on the bridge stop talking. The planet had buildings, massive buildings that stretched for miles. They were old, very old, but they were still working. "How old do you think they are?" Jake asked. "The materials show signs of being thousands of years old. Maybe 3,000 or 4,000 years? But Captain, they are still active? Something is still running down there." Jake made the decision that would change everything for humanity. He ordered the ship to move closer to the planet. As they got nearer, the signals got stronger. Then something happened that no one expected. The signals changed. They became organized, like someone was trying to talk. The bridge was quiet as Tony worked to understand the new signals. Suddenly, his computer started making sounds. Not random sounds, but patterns. The patterns became clearer and clearer until everyone could hear it. It was a voice. "Welcome, travelers from the distant stars," the voice said in perfect English. "I am Kethvar, ambassador of the Zenthari Empire. Your species shows great promise. Please come to the surface. We have much to discuss." Jake looked at his crew. They all had the same look of shock and wonder. This was first contact with an alien intelligence. Everything they had dreamed about and feared was happening right now? "How does it know our language?" Dr. Wells whispered. "I have been listening to your communications for many cycles," Kethvar said, apparently hearing her question. "Your species learns fast and shows great creativity. These are good signs. Please do not fear. I mean you no harm." Jake made another decision that would change human history. He chose to trust this alien voice. He ordered a small team to take a shuttle down to the planet's surface. He would lead the team himself, along with Lisa, Tony, and Dr. Wells. The shuttle ride down was the longest 20 minutes of their lives. The planet's surface was covered with buildings that looked like they were grown rather than built. They curved and twisted in ways that seemed impossible. As they landed near the largest structure, they saw it was made of a material that seemed to glow with its own light. Kethvar was waiting for them. He was not what they expected. Instead of a living being, he appeared to be made of light and energy. He stood 8 feet tall, and his form shifted and moved like water made of stars. "I am what you would call an artificial intelligence," Kethvar explained. "My creators, the Zenthari, built me to guard this outpost and to evaluate any species that might find us. You have passed the first test simply by coming here peacefully." Dr. Wells stepped forward. "Where are your creators now?" Kethvar's form dimmed slightly. "They are gone. Destroyed by an enemy that consumes entire worlds. We called them the Devourers. They came from the dark spaces between galaxies and they consumed everything in their path. My people fought them for 1,000 years before falling. Jake felt a chill run through him. Are these devourers still out there? Yes, and they are returning to this sector of space. My sensors have detected their scout ships at the edge of this galaxy. You have perhaps 10 of your years before their main fleet arrives. Your species will face the same choice my creators faced: fight or be consumed. The weight of this information hit the human crew like a hammer. They had come looking for new worlds and instead found a warning of humanity's possible destruction. But there is hope, Kethvar continued. My creators left behind all their knowledge and technology. They hoped that someday another species would find it and succeed where they failed. Your species shows promise. You think differently than we did. You might find a way to stop what we could not. Kethvar led them into the glowing building. Inside, they found rooms filled with devices and computers beyond human understanding. The walls showed images of space battles and planets being destroyed. It was the history of a war that had ended thousands of years ago, but was about to begin. Again, I will give you access to our technology, Kethvar said, but you must promise to use it wisely. The Devourers learn from every battle. They adapt to every weapon. Defeating them will require more than just advanced technology. It will require the best of what makes your species unique. Jake looked at his crew and saw the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his heart. Humanity had just learned they were not alone in the universe, and that their survival depended on preparing for a war unlike anything they had ever imagined. Admiral Claire Thompson stood in the center of Earth's new command center and watched as hundreds of people worked at computers and displays. 6 months had passed since Captain Morrison returned with the Xanthari technology and the Terrible. News about the Devourers. The entire world had changed in those 6 months. Every major nation on Earth had put aside their differences and joined the Earth Defense Initiative. Factories that once made cars and computers now built weapons and spaceships. Scientists who had spent their lives studying medicine and physics now worked together to understand alien technology. The human race was preparing for war like never. Before, Dr. Richard Kane walked up to Admiral Thompson with a smile on his face. He was leading the weapons development team and had been working 80-hour days since the project started. In his hands, he carried a small device that glowed with blue energy. "Admiral, we've done it," he said. "We've successfully created our first plasma weapon using Xanthari technology. It's 3 times more powerful than our best nuclear weapons, but half the size." Thompson took the device and looked at it carefully. It was hard to believe that something so small could be so powerful. The Xanthari had been generous with their knowledge, but understanding it and building it were 2 very different things. "How many can we produce?" she asked. "With our current factories running at full capacity, we can make 50 per day. But that's just the hand weapons. The ship-mounted versions will take longer." Across the room, Colonel Amy Foster was watching a group of volunteers test the new biotechnology that the Xanthari had left behind. The volunteers had agreed to let scientists change their bodies to make them stronger and faster. The process was risky, but the results were amazing. She watched as a young soldier named Nick Davis lifted a weight that should have been impossible for a human to move. His reflexes were now 3 times faster than normal, and his mind could process information like a computer. He was the first of what they called the enhanced soldiers. "Colonel Foster," Admiral Thompson called. "How are the enhancement tests going?" Foster walked over with a report in her hand. "Better than we hoped, Admiral. The Xanthari biotechnology works perfectly with human biology. We can make soldiers stronger, faster, and smarter without any negative effects. We've already started training the first 100 enhanced soldiers." But the most important discovery had come from Lieutenant Commander Nick Davis himself. While testing the enhancements, he had tried to connect directly with one of the Xanthari computers. Instead of failing, his enhanced brain had successfully linked with the alien AI system. This discovery led to the creation of the Sync pilot program. Davis was now working with the team building humanity's new space fleet. The ships were a combination of human engineering and Xanthari technology. They were faster and more powerful than anything humans had ever built. But the most important feature was that they could be controlled directly by a pilot's mind. Captain Ben Hayes stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, the first of the new warships. The ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It could travel faster than light and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But what made it special was the pilot's chair in the center of the bridge. When a Sync pilot sat in that chair and connected their mind to the ship's systems, they became one with the vessel. They could feel every sensor, control every weapon, and make decisions at the speed of thought. It was dangerous because the mental strain could kill a pilot, but it made the ships incredibly effective in battle. Hayes was one of the few regular humans who could command a ship full of enhanced soldiers and Sync pilots. He had been chosen because he understood both the technology and the people who used it. His crew respected him because he never asked them to do something he wouldn't do himself. Dr. Amanda Wells was working in a different part of the complex, studying the information that Kethvar had given them about the Devourers. What she found in the alien records was more terrifying than anyone had imagined. The Devourers were not just another alien species, they were something much worse. "Admiral Thompson, you need to see this," Dr. Wells called out. Thompson walked over to Wells's station and looked at the display. It showed images of planets before and after the Devourers had visited them. The before images showed beautiful worlds with oceans, forests, and cities. The after images showed empty rocks floating in space. "They don't just kill everything on a planet," Wells explained. "They consume it. They break down matter at the molecular level and use it to build more of themselves. A devourer ship that lands on a planet with 1 billion people will leave as 10 ships." This information changed everything about how humanity would fight the war. They couldn't just defeat the Devourers in battle. They had to make sure the aliens never reached any populated planet. Meanwhile, Captain Morrison was leading scouting missions to the edge of human space. His ship, the UES Horizon, had been upgraded with the new technology and carried a crew of enhanced soldiers. Their job was to watch for the first signs of the Devourer fleet. On his latest mission, Morrison's team found something that made everyone's blood run cold. They discovered the remains of a solar system that had been completely consumed. Where there had once been 8 planets, there was now only empty space and a few floating chunks of dead rock. Morrison's science officer, a young woman named Kelly Brooks, studied the debris field with the ship's sensors. What she found proved that Wells was right about how the Devourers operated. "Captain, the molecular composition of this debris shows that everything was broken down and reformed," Brooks reported. "The planets, the asteroids, even the gas from the outer planets. It's all been processed." Morrison sent the data back to Earth immediately. The information helped Dr. Kane's team understand what they were really fighting. The Devourers were like a disease that spread from world to world, growing stronger with each victory, but humans were not giving up. In shipyards around Earth and on colonies throughout human space, new vessels were being built every day. The Used Bastion was the largest, a mobile fortress that could carry 10,000 people and had weapons powerful enough to crack a moon in half. Captain Rebecca Stone commanded the Bastion and was responsible for protecting Earth's colonies if the Devourers broke through the main fleet. She was a veteran of the asteroid mining wars and knew how to fight in space better than almost anyone. "We're not just building ships," Stone told her crew. "We're building hope. Every weapon we make, every soldier we train, every ship we launch is a promise that humanity will survive." The colonies were changing too. New Geneva, humanity's furthest outpost, was being turned into a fortress. Ground Commander Lucas Green led the effort to prepare the planet's defenses. His soldiers practiced fighting against simulated Devourer attacks every day. Green's troops were all enhanced soldiers who could think and move faster than regular humans. They carried the new plasma weapons and wore armor made from Xanthari materials. But Green knew that technology alone wouldn't be enough. They needed to be ready to sacrifice everything to protect their world. As the months passed, humanity's preparations grew more advanced. Scientists discovered new ways to use Xanthari technology. Engineers built bigger and more powerful ships. Soldiers became faster and stronger. But everyone knew they were running out of time. The scout ships that Morrison's team had been watching were getting closer to human space. Soon, the real war would begin, and humanity would learn if all their preparations had been enough. The next phase of human evolution was about to be tested in the fires of interstellar war. Fleet Admiral Steve Curtis watched the display screens in the Mars Command Center as thousands of red dots appeared at the edge of human space. The Devourer main fleet had finally arrived, and it was bigger than anyone had imagined. The alien ships stretched across space like a dark cloud that blocked out the stars. "How many ships are we looking at?" Curtis asked his intelligence officer. "At least 3,000 confirmed contacts, sir, but they keep coming. Our sensors are having trouble counting them all." Curtis felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He commanded every human warship in existence, nearly 800 vessels of different sizes. Against 3,000 enemy ships, the odds were not good. But humans had advantages that the Xanthari never had. Captain Ben Hayes received the alert on his ship, the UES Defiance, as it patrolled near Proxima Centauri. His crew of enhanced soldiers and sync pilots had been training for this moment for 2 years. Now, the real test was about to begin. "All hands to battle stations," Hayes announced. "This is not a drill. The Devourers have arrived." "Lieutenant." Sarah Kim was already in her sync pilot chair, her mind connected to the ship's systems. She could feel every sensor and weapon as if they were parts of her own body. Around her, 12 other sync pilots did the same with their assigned systems. Together, they made the Defiance more than just a ship. They made it a living weapon. The first battle happened exactly where Curtis had expected it would. The Devourer sent an advance force of 50 ships toward Proxima Centauri, humanity's closest colony world. Hayes led a squadron of 20 human ships to intercept them. What the humans found was unlike anything they had prepared for. The Devourer ships were not made of metal and technology like human vessels. They were alive. They pulsed with organic energy and seemed to grow and change as the battle progressed. "Target the lead ship," Hayes ordered. "All weapons full power." The human ships opened fire with their plasma weapons, sending streams of blue energy across space. The weapons hit their target and tore massive holes in the alien vessel. For a moment, it looked like the attack had worked. Then the holes began to close. "Captain, the enemy ship is healing itself," Sarah Kim reported, her voice tight with concentration. "Its cellular structure is rebuilding the damage faster than we can cause it." This was the first shock for the human forces. The Devourers could repair themselves during battle. But Hayes and his crew didn't panic. They had trained for unexpected situations. "Switch to quantum disruptor rounds," Hayes ordered. "Target their power sources." Dr. Kane's new quantum weapons worked differently than regular plasma blasts. Instead of just causing damage, they disrupted matter at the molecular level. When the quantum rounds hit the Devourer ships, parts of them simply stopped existing. That alien ship tried to heal itself, but the quantum damage was too severe. The vessel broke apart and died in space. But before the humans could celebrate, something else happened that changed everything. The other Devourer ships began to change. Their hulls shifted and grew new armor plating. When the humans fired quantum weapons at them, the new armor absorbed most of the damage. "They're adapting," Sarah Kim said, her voice filled with disbelief. "They saw what killed their leader, and they changed to defend against it." This was the second shock. The Devourers learned from every attack and became stronger. The advantage that human weapons had given them lasted for only a few minutes. The battle became a deadly dance of adaptation and counter-adaptation. Every time the humans found a way to hurt the Devourers, the aliens changed to resist it. Every time the Devourers tried a new attack, the human sync pilots found a way to avoid or deflect it, but the humans had something the Devourers didn't expect. They had creativity and the ability to think in ways that didn't follow patterns. Sarah Kim proved this when she did something that no tactical manual would have suggested. Instead of trying to destroy a devourer ship with weapons, she flew her vessel directly into it. At the last second, she used the ship's teleportation system to materialize inside the enemy hull. The sudden appearance of solid matter inside another object caused both ships to explode, but it destroyed the alien vessel completely. Hayes watched in amazement as his pilot sacrificed her ship to save the rest of the squadron, but Sarah Kim wasn't dead. The enhanced soldiers had better reaction times and stronger bodies. She had managed to reach an escape pod before the explosion. The Battle of Proxima Centauri lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the humans had lost 8 ships, but they had destroyed all 50 devourer vessels. More importantly, they had learned how to fight an enemy that adapted to every attack, but the victory came at a terrible cost. The battle had revealed just how dangerous the devourers were. If 50 ships had been this difficult to defeat, what would happen when the main fleet of 3,000 attacked? Back on Earth, Dr. Amanda Wells studied the battle recordings with growing alarm. The devourer adaptation was even more sophisticated than the Xanthari records had indicated. These creatures didn't just learn from experience. They shared information instantly across their entire species. Every devourer ship now knows everything that happened at Proxima Centauri, she told Admiral Thompson. They know about our quantum weapons, our sync pilots, and our tactics. The next battle will be much harder. Dr. Kane was already working on new weapons, but he knew it was a race against time. The devourers would adapt faster than humans could develop new technology. They needed a completely different approach to the war. Meanwhile, on the colony world of New Geneva, Ground Commander Lucas Green was preparing for the possibility that devourer forces might make it to the planet's surface. His enhanced soldiers had been training for ground combat against living enemies. Remember, these things can absorb and use anything they touch, Green told his troops. Don't let them get close enough to grab your weapons or equipment. Keep moving and don't give them time to adapt to your tactics. Green's daughter, Lieutenant Eva Miller, was one of the enhanced soldiers under his command. She had volunteered for the most dangerous assignments despite her father's objections. Like many young humans, she felt the weight of her species' survival. On her shoulders, the ground forces had developed tactics specifically for fighting adaptive enemies. They used hit-and-run attacks, constantly changing weapons and strategies. They had learned that the best way to fight something that adapted was to never do the same thing twice. Captain Rebecca Stone commanded the mobile fortress UASIS as it moved to protect the outer colonies. Her ship was the size of a small city and carried enough firepower to level a continent. But even she knew that firepower alone wouldn't be enough. "We're not just defending colonies," she told her crew. "We're buying time for the scientists to find a better way to fight these things. Every day we hold them back is another day for our people to find the answer." As news of the Battle of Proxima Centauri spread throughout human space, people reacted in different ways. Some were afraid because the enemy was so powerful. Others were encouraged because humanity had won its first major battle, but the military leaders knew the truth. Humanity had won a single battle against a small force. The real war was just beginning, and the devourers now knew everything about human capabilities. The next phase of the conflict would test whether human creativity and determination could overcome an enemy that adapted to every strategy. Fleet Admiral Curtis began planning for the inevitable attack on Earth itself. He knew that the devourers would come in force, and when they did, humanity would need every advantage they could get. The survival of the human race would depend on the courage of ordinary people doing extraordinary things in the face of impossible odds. Chief Tactical Officer Daniel Murphy stood before the holographic display in the war room and pointed to the swirling mass of red dots that represented the devourer fleet. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Proxima Centauri, and the human forces had fought 12 more engagements. Each battle had become harder as the aliens adapted to human tactics. "We can't keep fighting them ship to ship," Murphy told the assembled commanders. "Every time we destroy one of their vessels, the rest of the fleet learns how we did it. We need to change our entire strategy. Admiral Thompson leaned forward in her chair. The past months had aged her years in just weeks. The constant pressure of leading humanity's defense was taking its toll on everyone. What are you suggesting, Commander Murphy? Murphy manipulated the display to show the Devourer supply line stretching back toward the edge of the galaxy. Red arrows showed how new ships were constantly arriving to replace those that had been destroyed. Instead of attacking their fleet directly, we target their logistics. Intelligence Officer Maya Rodriguez has identified their reproduction centers and supply routes. If we can disrupt those, we can stop them from replacing their losses. Maya Rodriguez stepped forward with a datapad in her hands. She had been leading dangerous reconnaissance missions behind enemy lines for months. Her enhanced soldier abilities and natural intelligence had made her one of humanity's most valuable assets. I've confirmed the locations of 17 nursery facilities where the Devourers grow new ships, she said. Each facility can produce dozens of vessels per month. If we destroy even half of them, we can turn this into a war of attrition. But attacking the nursery facilities would require getting deep into Devourer territory without being detected. That seemed impossible until engineer Carlos Wright came forward with his latest creation. Wright had been working in secret for months on something he called the Ghost Drive. It was based on technology found in the deepest parts of the Xanthari archives, combined with human innovations in quantum mechanics. The Ghost Drive makes our ships invisible to Devourer biosensors, Wright explained. Their ships detect other vessels by sensing life energy and electromagnetic signatures. This system masks both completely. Admiral Thompson examined the device Wright had brought. It looked like a crystalline structure surrounded by spinning metal rings. The technology was so advanced that, even with Xanthari knowledge, only a few human engineers could understand how it worked. How many ships can you equip with this system? She asked. Right now, only small vessels, fighters and scout ships. But that might be enough for hit-and-run attacks on their facilities. The first test of the Ghost Drive came 2 weeks later. Captain Alex Turner commanded the UES Shadow, a small ship designed specifically for stealth operations. His crew included some of humanity's best. Enhanced soldiers and most skilled pilots. Turner's mission was to destroy a Devourer nursery facility in the Beta Centauri system. The facility was protected by 30 alien warships, making a direct attack impossible. But with the Ghost Drive, the Shadow could get close without being detected. The approach took 18 hours. Turner and his crew watched through their sensors as they passed within a few hundred meters of Devourer patrol ships. The aliens showed no sign that they knew the human vessel was there. Ghost Drive is working perfectly, reported Turner's engineer. We're completely invisible to them. The nursery facility was unlike anything humans had seen before. It looked like a massive organic flower floating in space, with dozens of smaller structures growing from its central core. Each of the smaller structures contained a developing Devourer ship. Turner's team planted quantum charges throughout the facility's most vital areas. The charges were timed to go off simultaneously, ensuring that the entire structure would be destroyed before the Devourers could adapt their defenses. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The nursery facility and all the ships growing inside it were completely destroyed. More importantly, the 30 guard ships were also caught in the blast because they had moved closer to investigate the strange energy readings just before the charges detonated. The success of the first stealth raid changed the entire war. Within a month, humanity had destroyed 8 more nursery facilities. The flow of new Devourer ships slowed to a trickle, and for the first time, human forces began to outnumber their enemies in some battles, but the Devourers were not helpless against this new strategy. After losing several facilities, they began to adapt their detection methods. Dr. Amanda Wells studied the enemy response with growing concern. They're developing new sensor types, she told the command staff. The bioquantum scanners that can detect the Ghost Drive's energy signature. Our stealth advantage won't last much longer. Meanwhile, Dr. Kane had been working on an even more ambitious project. His analysis of captured Devourer technology had revealed something important about how their ships were controlled. Every Devourer ship is connected to a command organism, Kane explained to a gathering of top scientists and military leaders. Think of them like queen bees in a hive. If we can destroy the queen ships, entire fleets of drones become helpless. The queen ships were massive organisms, each one the size of a small moon. They stayed hidden in the center of Devourer formations, protected by thousands of smaller vessels. Getting close enough to attack them seemed impossible. That's when Marine Colonel Jacob Miller proposed the most dangerous mission in military history. His idea was to use boarding pods to get enhanced soldiers directly onto the queen ships, where they could plant explosives in the creature's neural centers. Miller's own daughter, Lieutenant Eva Miller, was the first to volunteer for the suicide mission. The enhanced soldiers who would attempt the boarding had only a small chance of survival, but they understood that the fate of humanity might depend on their success. The first boarding mission was led by Sergeant Peter Walsh, a veteran enhanced soldier who had survived every major battle of the war. His team of 12 soldiers launched from the UES Defiance, in specially designed pods that could penetrate the hull of a queen ship. The approach was the most terrifying experience any of them had ever faced. The queen ship was alive and aware of their presence. As their pods burrowed through its hull, the creature's immune system began attacking them with antibody organisms the size of tanks. "Keep moving," Walsh ordered his team over the communication system. "Don't let those things touch you or they'll absorb your weapons and equipment." The interior of the queen ship was like being inside a living nightmare. The walls pulsed with organic energy, and the air was filled with spores that tried to invade their breathing systems. Only their sealed armor kept the soldiers alive. Walsh's team fought their way through corridors that shifted and changed around them. Every step was dangerous because the ship was actively trying to digest them, but their enhanced soldier abilities gave them the speed and strength they needed to stay ahead of the creature's defenses. Finally, they reached the neural center, a vast chamber filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with thought energy. The Queen's consciousness was spread throughout these crystals, coordinating the actions of thousands of drone ships across the galaxy. Walsh and his team planted their quantum charges quickly and efficiently. They had trained for this moment for months, practicing the procedure until they could do it in their sleep. As soon as the charges were set, they began their escape. Only 4 of the 12 soldiers made it back to their extraction point alive. Walsh was among the survivors, but he had been badly injured by the ship's immune system. As they flew away from the Queen ship, they watched the quantum charges detonate. The explosion destroyed the Queen's neural center completely. Throughout the sector, hundreds of Devourer drone ships suddenly stopped moving. Without the Queen's guiding intelligence, they became helpless and easy targets for human forces. The success of the first boarding mission proved that the strategy could work. Over the following months, enhanced soldier teams destroyed 6 more Queen ships. Each victory paralyzed large sections of the Devourer fleet and gave humanity breathing room to develop new tactics, but the cost was terrible. Of the 200 enhanced soldiers who attempted boarding missions, fewer than 30 survived. Each mission required volunteers who knew they would probably die. Yet there was never a shortage of people willing to make the sacrifice. Lieutenant Eva Miller survived her boarding mission, but she watched 11 of her teammates die in the process. When she returned to base, her father could see the weight of loss in her eyes. The war was changing everyone who fought in it. Was it worth it? He asked her privately. Eva looked out the window at the stars and thought about the billions of humans who were depending on them to win this war. "Every Queen ship we destroy saves entire worlds," she said. "If we can find a way to destroy them all, we can end this war. That makes any sacrifice worth it." The boarding missions had given humanity hope, but everyone knew that the Devourers would eventually adapt to this strategy too. The race was on to find the ultimate source of the alien threat before the enemy found a way to defend against humanity's most effective weapon. Admiral Thompson stood in the center of the command room as she prepared to give the order that would either save humanity or doom it forever. Operation Starfall was the most ambitious military campaign in human history. Every ship, every soldier, and every weapon that humanity possessed was about to be committed to a final assault on the Devour home base. "All fleet commanders report ready," announced Fleet Admiral Curtis from his position at the tactical display. The past year of successful raids had weakened the Devour forces significantly, but intelligence reports suggested that their main stronghold contained thousands of ships and dozens of queen organisms. Captain Morrison, now commanding the experimental warship USS Phoenix, received his final orders through the communication system. His ship had been built using the most advanced combination of human and Xanthari technology ever attempted. The Phoenix could travel faster than any other vessel, and carried weapons that could destroy entire fleets. "Lisa, are all systems ready?" Morrison asked his chief engineer. Lisa Parker had been with him since the first discovery of Xanthari technology, and she had become one of the most skilled engineers in human space. "All systems operating at peak efficiency, Captain," Parker replied. "The Phoenix is ready for whatever we're about to face." Morrison's crew included Tony Rodriguez, who had been upgraded with advanced communication implants that allowed him to coordinate with dozens of other ships simultaneously. The veteran crew had fought together through every major battle of the war, and they trusted each other completely. But the most important part of Operation Starfall was the diversionary attack that Morrison would lead. While the main human fleet assaulted the Devourer stronghold from one direction, the Phoenix and its escort ships would attack from the opposite side. The goal was to divide the enemy forces and prevent them from concentrating their defense. The journey to the Devourer home base took 2 weeks through hyperspace. During the trip, human scouts discovered something that changed everything they thought they knew about their enemy. Maya Rodriguez transmitted the intelligence data from her stealth reconnaissance ship. What she had found at the Devourer stronghold was both terrifying and promising. "The Devourers aren't just following biological instincts," Rodriguez reported. "They're being controlled by some kind of central artificial intelligence. All their adaptation and learning is coming from a single source." Dr. Amanda Wells analyzed the data from her position aboard Admiral Curtis's flagship. The implications were staggering. If the Devourers were controlled by an AI, then destroying that AI might end the war completely. "The controlling intelligence is located in a massive biomechanical structure at the center of their fleet," Wells explained to the command staff. "It's like a computer made from living tissue. If we can reach it, we might be able to shut down the entire Devourer species. But reaching the central AI would require getting through thousands of enemy ships and penetrating the most heavily defended structure in Devourer space." The mission seemed impossible until Sync pilot Sarah Kim volunteered for the most dangerous assignment ever attempted. Kim had survived more battles than any other pilot in the war. Her ability to link her mind with spacecraft systems had evolved far beyond what anyone thought possible. She could now interface with multiple ships simultaneously and coordinate complex attacks through pure thought. "I can establish a neural link with the controlling AI," Kim told Admiral Thompson. The moment the Curator broke free from its Devourer programming, everything changed across the entire battlefield. Ships that had been fighting with perfect coordination suddenly stopped moving. Weapons that had been adapting to every human tactic went silent. For the first time in the war, the Devourers seemed confused and helpless. Captain Morrison watched from the bridge of the Phoenix as enemy vessels throughout the battle zone began to turn on each other. The Curator was using its control over the Devourer fleet to tear apart the parasitic programming that had enslaved both itself and an entire species. "Tony, what are you seeing on the communication channels?" Morrison asked his communications officer. Rodriguez looked up from his console with amazement in his eyes. "Captain, the Devourer ships are transmitting surrender signals. They're asking for help." Admiral Curtis received the same reports from across the battle zone. The enemy that had seemed unstoppable just minutes before was now pleading for assistance. But Curtis was a careful commander who had learned not to trust anything about the Devourers. "All ships maintain defensive positions," he ordered. "This could be another adaptation or trick." Meanwhile, Colonel Foster and her team were still trapped inside the biomechanical structure with the unconscious Sarah Kim. The organic walls around them had stopped their attacks and were now retracting, revealing the original Xanthari architecture beneath the alien modifications. Ryan, can you establish communication with the structure's AI? Foster asked her tech specialist. Ryan Clark connected his equipment to one of the exposed Xanthari interfaces. Almost immediately, a voice filled their communication system. It was the curator, but it sounded different now. The malevolent undertone that had marked all Devourer communications was gone. I apologize for the harm that was done while I was corrupted, the curator said. The beings you call Devourers are actually a species called the Vractai. They were enslaved by a parasitic program that infected their technology millions of years ago. I was infected when I tried to help them. Foster looked down at Sarah Kim, who was barely breathing after her ordeal. The young pilot had risked everything to free the curator, and it looked like she might not survive to see the results of her sacrifice. Can you help her? Foster asked. I can stabilize her neural pathways using Xanthari medical technology, the curator replied. But her mind will need time to heal from the strain of our connection. As the curator worked to save Kim's life, it also began the process of freeing the Vractai from their parasitic programming. The process was not gentle. Across the galaxy, Devourer ships began to tear themselves apart as the AI removed every trace of the corruption that had controlled them. Dr. Amanda Wells studied the readings from her science station as she watched an entire species undergo transformation. What emerged from the destruction was completely different from what humanity had been fighting. The original Vractai were explorers and scientists, Wells reported to Admiral Curtis. They had been traveling between galaxies for millions of years before they encountered the parasite program. Their technology was designed for discovery and preservation, not destruction. The surviving Vractai ships began to change shape, shedding their weapon systems and growing new structures designed for communication and research. When they approached the human fleet, they did so slowly and peacefully, broadcasting messages of gratitude and friendship, but the transformation was not complete. The curator had destroyed the parasitic programming, but many Vractai had died in the process. Their species had been reduced from billions to just a few million survivors, scattered across dozens of ships. Captain Ben Hayes led the first direct communication between humans and the freed Vractai. What he learned changed his understanding of the entire war. They never wanted to destroy other civilizations, Hayes reported to the Fleet Command. The parasite program forced them to consume worlds to fuel its own growth. They were prisoners in their own bodies for millions of years. The Vractai leader, an ancient being who called himself Truthseeker, expressed his people's horror at what they had been forced to do. Through the curator's translation systems, he apologized for every world that had been consumed and every species that had been destroyed. We carry the guilt of crimes we could not prevent, Truthseeker said. If there is any way we can make amends for the suffering we caused, we will do so gladly. Admiral Thompson made the decision that would define humanity's role in the galaxy for generations to come. Instead of demanding revenge or reparations, she offered the Vractai a chance at redemption. Help us restore the worlds that were damaged. She said, use your technology to bring life back to the places where it was taken. That will be payment enough. The curator revealed that it had detailed records of every world consumed by the Devourer fleet. More importantly, it had preserved the genetic patterns of countless species that had been destroyed. With Vractai biotechnology and human determination, it might be possible to restore entire ecosystems. Sarah Kim woke up 3 days after her neural link with the curator. Her mind was changed by the experience, and she could still feel echoes of the vast intelligence she had touched. But she was alive, and she had accomplished something that would be remembered for all of human history. Was it worth it, Dr. Kane? Asked her as she recovered in the medical bay. Kim looked out the window at the mixed fleet of human and Vractai ships working together to clean up the battlefield. Former enemies were now sharing technology and knowledge, united by their experience of fighting against the same parasitic threat. Look at them, she said. A month ago, we were trying to destroy each other. Now we're working together to heal the damage that was done. Yes, it was worth it. The war was officially declared over 6 months later. The remaining Devourer ships had all been converted back to their original Vractai configuration. The parasitic programming that had caused so much suffering was completely destroyed, with safeguards put in place to prevent it from ever returning. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, which had been converted back to an exploration vessel. His mission was to lead the first joint human Vractai expedition to survey worlds that could be restored to life. Lisa, are the Vractai biotechnology systems integrated with our equipment? He asked his chief engineer. Integration is complete, Captain, Parker replied. We're ready to begin restoration operations on the first target world. The planet below them had once been home to a thriving civilization before the Devourers consumed it. Now it was just a dead rock floating in space. But with the Curator's genetic records and Vractai restoration technology, they could bring it back to life. Morrison's crew included both humans and Vractai working side by side. The former enemies had discovered that they had much in common. Both species valued exploration, discovery, and the preservation of knowledge. Together, they were stronger than either had been alone. As the restoration process began, Morrison thought about how much humanity had changed during the war. They had started as a single-world species with limited technology. The conflict had forced them to evolve rapidly, developing enhanced soldiers, sync pilots, and advanced weapons. But the most important change was not technological. Humanity had learned that their greatest strength was not their weapons or their ships. It was their ability to inspire others to be better than they were. Sarah Kim had saved an entire species by helping an AI remember its original purpose. Captain, we're detecting the first signs of life on the planet's surface. Tony Rodriguez reported from his communication station. The restoration is working. Morrison smiled as he watched green patches begin to appear on the dead world below. This was what humans did best. They took broken things and made them whole again. They found hope in the darkest situations and shared that hope with others. The Curator had established a new base of operations on a space station at the edge of the galaxy. From there, it coordinated the restoration efforts and served as a bridge between dozens of species that had survived the Devourer expansion. Under its guidance, the galaxy was healing. Truthseeker and his people had dedicated their entire civilization to making amends for their forced crimes. They shared their advanced biotechnology freely and worked tirelessly to restore dead worlds. Many of them chose to stay on the planets they restored, serving as guardians to ensure that life would never be destroyed there again. Admiral Thompson retired from military service and became the first director of Galactic Relations. Her job was to coordinate cooperation between the growing alliance of species that had come together after the war. Under her leadership, former enemies became partners in exploration and discovery. Colonel Foster established training programs that taught enhanced soldier techniques to volunteers from dozens of different species. Her daughter Eva became an instructor, helping former Devourer worlds develop their own defense capabilities. Dr. Kane led research teams that combined human, Vractai, and Xanthari technology to develop new tools for exploration and peaceful development. His quantum weapons were converted into mining tools and terraforming equipment. 5 years after the end of the war, Captain Morrison stood on the surface of a world that had been dead for 1,000 years. Now it was covered with forests,